On today's episode of Locked On Suns, why Frank Vogel may not be the perfect, ideal, everybody's first choice candidate to be the Phoenix Suns head coach, but he's the best one they've got. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Monday morning, kicking off the first week without Suns basketball. Well, thank you for being here anyway. Hit follow or subscribe wherever you're finding the show. We're free and available everywhere, including YouTube. Hit that button, get a new episode in your feed every single Monday through Friday. The games might be over, for the Suns at least, but the episodes keep rolling. So keep it right here. Get locked onto the Phoenix Suns all off season long. Become an everydayer if you're not already. Look, there's going to be turnover. We know that. The Suns keep us on our toes. You might as well get the info and analysis right here every day. Hang out with me a little bit to start off your day as a Suns fan. Let's go, though. Monopoly Go is the sponsor of today's episode. The fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis to taunt your friends with. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Alrighty. Frank Vogel is the head coach of the Suns still as of Sunday at 4:45. Had to record the episode at some point, and I don't think it's going to change on Sunday night. That's not to say Monday morning things won't change, but as far as we know, Matt Ishbia has been in town now for the better part of 4 or 5 days, and he said, I'm going to meet with everybody, review all the decisions that I need to make as the owner of the team, and then proceed accordingly. And both Vogel and James Jones still have their jobs. Now, that could mean they're waiting for candidates to emerge, maybe candidates that are wrapped up in other searches, maybe candidates that are coaching on assistant staffs or even the head coaches of teams that are going to be eliminated soon at some point. Or they're just doing their diligence around the NBA and calling to see what their options even are. But what I'm here to tell you is, as far as my eye can see, Frank Vogel is the best option that the Phoenix Suns have. All right? I think we have seen in several high-profile situations now around the NBA over the past 2 off seasons, if you include 2023 and now early on here in 2024, that finding an upgrade at the head coach position is easier said than done, especially if the goal is to win a championship, especially if you are coming off of a disappointing playoff exit and find yourself with championship expectations, searching for what needs to happen to get over the hump and be closer to that goal the next year, right? That is a very common problem in the NBA. It's where the Suns are right now. They get swept. There's not a lot of moves they can make. The coach is the place to look. But Milwaukee tried that last year, right? Adrian Griffin, apparently Giannis pushed for him. That organization was desperate. They lose to the Miami Heat in devastating fashion. Middleton looks physically compromised. Giannis doesn't want to shoot the ball, and they fire their coach, Mike Budenholzer, despite his brother passing away during the middle of all of that. What do? They go out and get Adrian Griffin, who was a promising coach, but failed in terms of getting the franchise where they wanted to be and earning the respect and trust of the players to a point where everybody in that building felt comfortable moving forward with him. He didn't even last the season. The Lakers are dealing with this right now, right? Where you go all the way back to 2019, right? They want to hire Ty Lue, but they don't want to do it past when LeBron James will be the coach, will be the star of the team. Then they move on to Monty Williams after Lue gets frustrated by that. Monty Williams says no, comes here to Phoenix, They end up with Frank Vogel. Then they give Vogel a roster that doesn't suit him after the Russell Westbrook trade, and then they fire Vogel. They bring in Darvin Ham, overachieves in year 1, somehow is already fired in year 2. It's not always as easy as move on from the guy you have and you'll get something better. You look at the flip side of this whole situation, and last year, the Philadelphia 76ers, they had Brett Brown, obviously. Then they go to Doc Rivers. They fire Doc. And all of a sudden, Nick Nurse is available. You know? And it felt like Nick Nurse was going there all along. They pick up right where they left off. Nurse helps Joel Embiid's offensive game grow, gets the most out of a lot of the role players, particularly on the defensive end. And that team felt like it had an identity largely because, Harden and Simmons and everybody weren't doing their thing. But they had an identity more than I think the Sixers have had in a very long time. There's no Nick Nurse to come to Phoenix right now. The rumors, the reports around Ty Lue suggest, honestly, I'm going to be honest, said that twice. I don't know where things stand with Lue's salary beyond this season. What I believed last summer when the Suns poked around on Lue, as did other teams, was that Ty Lue used that leverage to get the 25-26 season of his contract, which is a team option apparently, picked up. Now it sounds like that might not be the case, and they're having to revisit that, or they're maybe talking about an extension. Coaching stuff can be messy because it's not always announced the same way that a player would be, and it's not as closely watched, I guess, like Billy Donovan and Willie Green, both this year in Chicago and New Orleans. Both, by the way, coaches I wouldn't hate in Phoenix, all things considered. Apparently both signed extensions that went under the radar. So I'm not sure where Lue is, but no indications are that he's leaving, regardless of whether his contract is guaranteed beyond this season or whatever. Everything seems to be that him and the team are going to work toward a long-term solution, which means you are looking at, I can look up best NBA head coach candidates 2024, which I did earlier, and the Wizards are looking for a coach already. The Hornets are looking for a coach already. The Lakers are looking for a coach already. Sporting News did a ranking. Stephen No, who does really good stuff for them. They have Budenholzer at number 1. Chris Quinn from the Miami Heat at number 2. Becky Hammon from the Aces at 3. Kenny Atkinson from the Warriors at 4, who never got a chance to even coach Kevin Durant, by the way, because he got fired prior to KD coming back from the Achilles, so I would doubt that's an option. JJ Redick, Terry Stotts, Sam Cassell, Dave Yeager, James Borrego, Mike D'Antoni, Mark Jackson. Okay. I wouldn't hate Mike D'Antoni, I guess. He's 72. I'm not sure if he even wants to coach anymore. There's some assistants on that list. Borrego is well known as a pretty good offensive mind. He took a Hornets team that has sucked every other year besides when he coached them, and they were a top 10 offense in the NBA with LaMelo Ball running things. Wouldn't hate that. He's been a head coach. Not at the level Frank Vogel has. Not making playoff chess moves and adjustments. Dave Yeager hasn't been a head coach in a very long time. Sam Cassell never has. So I don't know what is in the hearts and minds of the players in that Suns locker room. But none of the people that I just said or anybody we could reasonably expect to be on the market feels like an option that I'm going to go into next season as an analyst covering this team, as a fan, if I'm in your shoes, or if I'm anybody in that organization, feeling like, man, did we upgrade. We for sure got a better head coach. I'm so relieved we fired our head coach, Frank Vogel, and replaced him with this guy. Tell me who that is. Because we're pretty much a month into the offseason at this point. We know the names. None of them feel like a sure thing any more than Vogel does. Unless the players get involved and the leadership side of things can start to matter even more. I'll tell you what I mean coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by Monopoly Go. We all have a competitive side at the Locked On Podcast Network. Of course, we cover sports for a living, but we got to hit pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go, which is satisfying that competitive urge within all of us lately. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments or your fellow podcast hosts. Whether you work together to build up each other's boards, the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. So you're going head-to-head or you're working alongside, whatever feels better, whatever feels nicer with your buddies. Either way, it's a ton of fun. Unique stickers, cool new playing pieces, hilarious emojis all allow you to tease and taunt and win and beat your competition, beat your friend group, beat those competitive psychos that you might like to play with. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini-games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, and there are always new timed events to help you win big. There's always something fun to discover with Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, let's keep things rolling here. Leadership. Very hard thing to talk about as an outsider, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend as if I know what the leadership situation and calculations are within the Suns locker room. You know, I'm not even positive, how, let me rephrase. I'm not sure how seriously to take the story of people chuckling in the locker room after that Clippers game, for instance, right? Like, could that be a sign that Frank lost the locker room? Sure. Could it be a sign that the players are being immature? Yes. As far as I'm concerned, it's not Frank Vogel's fault that they went down 66-33 at halftime before that whole speech had to be given. I understand. I mean, we've all been in situations where somebody is trying to exert authority over you and it falls flat. It feels hollow. Either they have not earned the respect that they need to earn to have you listen, or the delivery's off, or whatever. It could have happened. But if you heard my episode with Stephen Perjone on Friday, which I would recommend checking out, it was our reaction to the press conference from last week, you will know that I am of the mind that this whole situation largely comes back to the players. And that's another reason why I'm not sold on the fact that firing Vogel just to bring some dude in, some new up-and-coming assistant X, Y, or Z in, is going to change much, period. Even if it's the best coach you could possibly find. Hell, even if it's Ty Lue, if I'm being 100% honest, even though I do think that is the type of coach who has earned a look to move on from your guy. If Ty Lue becomes available, I think he has proven enough that you got to explore that. But even then, the players have a lot of facing reality to do this offseason. Developing as teammates, developing as complementary parts of a basketball team. That's what doomed this group more than whether they chuckled at Frank Vogel on a Tuesday night the last week of the regular season, right? So, okay, what does that have to do with the coaching search, right? Well, last summer, I think we can be pretty certain that Monty Williams does not get fired unless the players either directly talking to James Jones or Matt Ishbia or indirectly making it known that time had run its course. I don't think that decision gets made unless the players are okay with it. I'm not saying they forced it. James Jones has said on multiple occasions on the record that it was his decision. So I'll take him at his word. But the players have influence on these situations, right? As much as I can sit here and tell you that Devin Booker needed to play better as the primary playmaker for this group, that the Suns need to find ways to incorporate what Kevin Durant is good at now better than maybe what he was good at 3, 5, 10 years ago, or that Bradley Beal just flat out needs to play better. They do have a say, even with all that said. And I think the part that I could be sold on, if you're telling me, hey, those guys want a change, and those guys want this candidate, it's this funny thing, but their own clear lack of vocal, demanding, direct leadership might need to necessitate that being solved by somebody else. So it's almost like them dropping the ball with the communication and the being on the same page and just grabbing this whole situation by the horns and saying, this is what it is. This is how we're playing. This is what it needs to look like. This is how we're going to sacrifice. This is what the mentality is going to be every night. Them not doing that almost creates this environment now where they can go pursue a coach that can do it for them. And they'll get it if they want it, right? So if you can find me a coach, if those guys can find a coach, if James Jones can present an option to them, if Matt Ishbia can present an option to them, and the leadership part is a needle that can be threaded, I sort of think you have to go with it, right? So I might, basketball-wise, I did my first episode after the playoff loss was very intentional. Can this big three win? And I think that it can. Do I think they're going to go into next season the favorites? Do I think they're going to go into next season with a lot of expectation or belief? No, and they haven't earned that. But I think when you have the talent that they have, you have a chance to win a championship. I still believe that. The basketball part is going to have to come from them. As I said on that episode last Monday, the big three needs to work by the star players that make it up, playing less like star players in some areas of the game. But off the court, big picture, interpersonally, where a coach can have a lot of impact, there is something to be said for we think we buy into this guy or girl. I don't think Becky Hammon's leaving the Aces, and we don't even need to visit that, right? But there is something to be said if that is made known to Ishbia and Jones. Even if you're running down the Adrian Griffin hole, I wouldn't say do it with anybody. I'm not saying say yes no matter who the candidate is. I think in hindsight, Giannis prizing this first-time head coach assistant guy was weird. And you got to do whatever you got to do with a guy like Giannis, who's better than anybody on the Suns and had a contract situation that was a little more tenuous than Booker's is now. So don't just blindly say yes. Hey, Booker likes this guy that's an assistant coach for the Knicks. I mean, who? Why that guy, right? But if it's David Fizdale on this staff, for instance, if it is, I don't know, Mike Budenholzer, if it's JJ Redick, if it's candidates who you think can reasonably do a similar job, those guys who in the last segment I just sat here and said, what's the point if they're not going to be an upgrade over Vogel? But if what makes them an upgrade is your star players saying, we're going to listen, we're going to respect this guy, and we're going to buy in more than we did last year, that could change my mind. It kind of has to change your mind because that ingredient was so clearly missing this year. Kevin Durant went on the record saying he believes the leadership of a team should come from the head coaching position, which you could agree or disagree, but that's the situation the Suns are in. Booker has had now a full season, if not, you want to say longer, as Chris Paul faded in terms of his on-court impact, to grab this whole situation and be the everything leader, rah dude that some teams have, that some players are, and that hasn't happened. So if it has to come from the head coach and those guys tell you this coach is going to be the one, I guess you got to do it. Still don't know who that's going to be, though. Closing out the show, I want to talk to you guys about the draft pick. We're ways out. I'm not going to tell you who they should draft. I have no idea. What I will tell you is why I think they should think long and hard about keeping the pick. Yeah, that's right. I'm doing it. Let's go. First, today's show brought to you by DoorDash. Got a couple of holidays to celebrate the important people in your life coming up, and DoorDash can help you celebrate. This Mother's Day, get something thoughtful for mom with DoorDash. Surprise her from wherever you are with fresh bouquets, the latest tech, gift cards, self-care treats, and more. All in one place, delivered right to her door. Does mom have a sweet tooth? Is she a tech enthusiast? Maybe a beauty connoisseur? I know my mom just sent over, hey, here's some stuff I wanted from Christmas that I didn't end up getting. They're kind of treat yourself types of things, but if you guys want an idea, here's some ideas. And they're all exactly like this. They're from, little boutique stores around here, or just little fancy stuff. Nothing crazy, but not stuff I would have thought of. If I want to get it delivered, make it a little extra special. We're not sure we're going to be able to line up our schedules to see each other on Mother's Day exactly. Hey, maybe make it that much more special by having it show up for her. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now. Get 50% off your next order up to $15. Use it to buy mom something special. Get it by spending $15 or more on your next order on DoorDash with the code LOCKEDONNBA. So next time you're buying something, enter the code LOCKEDONNBA, spend $15 or more, you get that reward back, make that next order that special gift. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Today's show, guys, also brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and this NBA playoffs, far and away the best place to be. I am looking at the odds for the second round, even if that's a little bit bleak right now. New customers are getting $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet at FanDuel. That's $150 straight to your account to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. So just drop money on something to get yourself started. Maybe you just bet against a team that you don't like that you think is going to lose, and then you don't have to, worry about the Suns' trauma part of it, all right? Like bet against the Cavs, for instance. That feels like a slam dunk bet. Get the fit 150 in bonus bets with that W, and then away you go. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, coaching search. We'll see. I'm not sure what'll happen. That's what I think should happen. But let's get to the draft. And it's going to be interesting thinking about the draft in the next 6 weeks because I'm not positive the Suns are going to use their pick. But I also think that there's a lot of players that could help them. So it's an odd situation right now where they should be thinking carefully about both. But let me tell you about why I think they should not trade it. Okay? And I'll do it by looking backward. I'll do it by looking at recent history in the NBA draft because I don't know the names of these people. The Suns have the 22nd overall pick. The past 2 years, the 22nd overall pick has been, 2 years ago it was Walker Kessler. Okay, that's kind of nice. The year before that, I believe it was like David Roddy or something. No, I guess he was the same year. Point being, it's a crapshoot anyway. As easily as you could say, hey, Tyrese Maxey got drafted around there. Suns could get their own Tyrese Maxey. That'd be pretty nice. You could easily get, 2023, it was Derek Whitehead. Plays for the Nets now. Have you ever even heard his name? No. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good player, but he's clearly not Tyrese Maxey yet, right? He's a guy who is like most picks in the 20s. Maybe, maybe not. Okay? But that's not why I think they should keep it, because they could get their Tyrese Maxey or they could develop some prospect or whatever. That'd be nice. I think it could help. But it's more so about, well, it is a little bit about that, right? It matters to get that player in the pipeline. I guess what I'm saying is it's not a sure thing that player will hit. I'm not here to tell you this player in this year's draft, Tristan da Silva, who I watched back at Stanford and then transferred to Colorado and is like a 3-and-D wing, 3-and-D forward. He's going to knock it out of the park for the Suns. That's why they should keep the pick. I'm not doing that. But there's basically two kinds of picks you can... There's basically three kinds of trades you can make in that range of the NBA draft, okay? One is trade back, and you look at, this year, very obvious option with that would be the Knicks, who have picks 24 and 25. Could you send 22 to New York with a couple of the second-round picks that you still have and get 24 and 25? Could you trade with Utah, who has 29 and 32, that same package, give them 22, send them 2 second-round picks plus your pick and get 29 and 32? 32 is a little nicer because it's not a first-round rookie scale deal, so it's a different kind of contract structure and you're not in the tax punishment area so badly. And then I guess this is sort of it's similar to the third type, and then I'll go to the first type of trade, the most common, which is getting a player, right? But Denver did this thing last year where they traded this is a little different, but it could be an option here, right? They traded their future first-round pick to get a pick toward the very end of the first round and the very beginning of the second round, and they ended up taking a shooter and then like a big forward. Okay, little different because that was a draft where the Nuggets did not have a pick at all, and they were kind of trading into it. Very NFL type of trade there, but maybe that would be the Suns trading their 2031 pick to get back in here, or involving their 2031 pick, which will be available starting draft night, within some of their move back trades. Okay, so those are kind of similar. And then there's the very common get a player back, right? This is what the Suns did in 2021 when they traded pick number, I believe it was 29, for Landry Shamet. This is very similar to the 23rd pick in 2022, which the Sixers had, and they traded to Memphis for DeAnthony Melton, along with Danny Green's salary, who had just had an injury. So that would be like the Suns trading Nurkic and 22 for some kind of player who makes the same amount of money as Nurkic. Really think of it as like you're kind of dumping a player and you're using a pick to do that, and then you're getting a similar value player back. So I don't know who that could be, but I don't think this is going to happen. But let me just, off the top of my head, a center who makes a similar amount of money to Nurkic if they wanted to just flip their center spot. Mitchell Robinson. The Knicks, doesn't make any sense because I told you they just had 24 and 25, but in theory, hypothetically, the Knicks get 22 and Nurkic, the Suns get Robinson. That's the that's the one that I think people think the Suns are going to do. Okay, so we've said that, but in the 2023 draft, a trade like that didn't happen. Right? the only trades that really happened in the first round in that range that the Suns are in was one pick got moved as kind of part of the Marcus Smart trade with Memphis. And then this other type was somewhat interesting, which was for pick number 24. The Kings traded Rashawn Holmes into the Mavs cap space, as far as I can tell in hindsight, looking back and trying to remember how it all played out, and then just gave them the pick. So that would be the Suns trading Nurkic to Orlando. They don't have a need for a center, or let's say San Antonio. That's a little more likely. The Suns trading the 22nd pick to Orlando with Nurkic. To San Antonio with Nurkic and getting something crappy back or nothing back. I mean, they have to get something, maybe like a second round pick or some player who's not really a consequential guy. Now would just be purely like tax relief. So that doesn't make sense for the Suns. I don't really think the Denver thing makes sense for the Suns, where they're trading a future pick and some kind of thing like that and then going to get, later guys and still drafting players, but not as good as what you could have gotten at 22. That doesn't make sense. So if you can get a player who you think is an upgrade and you give up the pick and you can have that player cost controlled, especially, Melton was under contract for 2 more seasons when Philly got him in the deal I just mentioned. Okay, I can be sold on that. I'm not closing the door to it. What I'm pointing out is that trade is harder to come by than you would think. It's rarer than you would think. And the upside of getting a player, especially knowing that James Jones' specialty is the types of guys that the Suns are going to have a chance at 22. Are you sure a DeAnthony Melton type of acquisition, not him, but a guy like him, equal value to him, a 6th-ish man, 7th man, maybe 5th man, are you sure that is better value than just taking somebody with 22? All I'm saying is it's not as obvious of a decision as I think Suns fans have believed it to be, thinking through it with the pressure to win now. That pick could help you win now and win within this Durant window more than a player you trade for. That'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe. Get more episodes throughout the offseason each and every day. The news will continue, and we will be here to cover it. Enjoy your Monday, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.